And now, the best 60-ish seconds of your week. And this week, we actually got some good news from Joe Biden. He admits that he doesn't have the votes for $3.5 trillion. He actually said $2.5 trillion, but we'll just assume that's one of those lapses that he has from time to time to get past the reconciliation package he's trying to foist upon the American people. Still saying, by the way, that it's not going to cost us anything. You got to just realize how it defies logic. What's really interesting, though, is that he followed it up by saying, a la the Terminator, I'll be back. He says, we'll come back and get the rest later on, meaning we'll ultimately dig our hands deeper into the pockets of the American people, raise their taxes dramatically, and spend profligately. It has to be shut down by the U.S. Congress. All this, of course, is just more and more big government. You know, the left sees life as a series of problems to be solved by government bureaucrats and big government agencies and so-called experts. We don't see life that way. But poll after poll is now showing that Americans want less government in their lives at the time when the Democrats and the quote-unquote progressive left are pushing us further and further over the socialist cliff. I think that's going to have dramatic impact on both the elections this year, but especially on the midterms next year. But let's keep watching. The polls right now look very, very good for the cause of freedom, individual liberty, and individual responsibility. The markets had a good week, proving once again what we've said all along, which is the economy isn't the markets and the markets aren't the economy. But S&P this week up at its highest level since March, and the Dow closing the week over 35,000. We all like that. But underneath, consumers are having a rough time. Price hikes all over the place if you can get the goods off of the shelves that you actually want because of the supply chain blockages that we now see. And Joe Biden, of course, blames it on everybody else. And we see coming into focus the perils of inflation. You remember the misery index? I think we're looking at another stage of that as we move forward into 2021 and 2022. The economy is always at the core of electoral politics. I think it will be this year. I believe it will be next year because a rising tide really does lift all boats. Lower taxes mean better things for individual families, and less government spending and less government interference and intervention always mean more productivity and more prosperity. And in my home state of Pennsylvania, in one of the worst kept secrets in the history of the state, the Attorney General, Josh Shapiro, announces that he is in fact a candidate for governor. One Republican, myself, instantly called on him to resign. Look, here's the situation. Here's a man who has asked for many, many jobs of the taxpayers of this state, his own county, and his own area, but has never finished the job that he's asked for. He got elected as state representative. People said when he was running for re-election, are you going to finish out your term? Well, he didn't want to answer that question. Immediately ran for county commissioner. Got elected county commissioner, and people said, are you going to finish out your term? Well, ran for attorney general. And last year during the campaign, Heather Heidelbaugh and others asked, are you going to finish your term? Well, and of course, he's only been sworn in for a couple of months, and he's running for governor officially, although unofficially he was before. Many states have run you must quit statutes. Pennsylvania doesn't. We ought to. The city of Philadelphia, interestingly, does in their city charter. The bottom line is that nobody should be running for public office on the taxpayer's dime. If you've been elected to one office, you ought to be fulfilling the duties and responsibilities of that office as you take a taxpayer's check. If you're not going to do that, but are going to be campaigning full-time, and let's face it, folks, if you're going to run statewide in a state as big as Pennsylvania, you have to do it full-time. You should resign the public office that you have. There's been a lot of media support in the past, and even the Democrat Party has called for that in the past. Let's see what they do now. And finally, some fun news this week. Captain Kirk, William Shatner, decades after he captained the USS Enterprise, a great name for a spaceship, by the way, back into space this week at age 90. Think about that. It's a great thing. I'm remembering John Glenn, the former U.S. Senator and one of the Mercury 7, the first American to actually orbit the Earth, who went back into space at age 77 into an orbital flight. And because Shatner's flight was suborbital, I think that John Glenn is still the oldest person ever to orbit the Earth, or get at least into the Earth's orbit. a great thing for both men, and pointing up that space truly is the final, or at least the most recent frontier, one that we need to explore and develop. This isn't just space travel and space tourism. This actually has economic, even military benefits, and ultimately benefits to consumer. Space exploration is really a great thing. It's wonderful to see the private sector involved as well. And for now, that is truly the best 60-ish seconds of your week.